let's talk about the ACEA light-duty engine oil specifications. Now, ACEA is the European body which looks after engine oil specs, and it is comprised of, as of the filming of this video, these organizations, of which you'll recognize that some of them are not necessarily European. But when they say European manufacturers, they're not referring to ownership structure or country of origin or anything like that. It's more companies with a manufacturing base in Europe or the UK. So, again, if we put kind of a timeline to all this kind of stuff, the ACEA oil categories do map on to this paradigm that we've talked about previously, where the emissions control age kind of ended in around 2010, and ever since then it's been all about fuel efficiency. And the thing you need to know with the ACEA categories is that there are two distinct categories. So there's A and B, which is for gasoline and diesel engine oils with high SAPs. So SAPs is sulfated ash, phosphorus and sulfur, and the key with high SAPs is that it's only suitable if you don't have something like a DPF or basically emissions treatment systems. Let's put it that way. Then we have the C category, which is catalyst friendly and particulate filter compatible gasoline and diesel engine oils as well. So these generally have low SAPs. Now, if you look at the different requirements around the HTHS viscosity, ash, phosphorus, sulfur, and TBN, these are all the numbers. You obviously don't need to memorize them. But one key thing is that in 2021, the A3, B3, and C1 categories were actually deleted. So we have a slightly reduced set of regulations. Now, one thing that should be noted is that on the TBN numbers, that the A7, B7, and C6 TBN numbers are actually a slightly different TBN test. It doesn't materially affect the overall result. It's just something to be aware of. Now, beyond the specifications around ash and sulfur and phosphorus, there are some additional testing requirements around valve train wear, fuel economy, and then in the new categories, which is A7, B7, as well as C6, we also have the addition of LSPI, so you'll recognize that as coming from the API SP and ILSAC GF6 categories as well. Plus, we have some more testing around turbo deposits and chain wear. So LSPI is an obvious one because, as we've discussed previously, low-speed pre-ignition is a phenomenon that has been, let's say, exacerbated by modern fuel economy technologies, right? So it usually applies to small turbocharged direct injection engines, and because it's become so prevalent, it's now been included as one of the oil tests because engine oil has been shown to be a contributing factor. Now, because of the prevalence of turbos, because like I mentioned, most people are trying to meet emissions regulations with small turbocharged engines, then we also can have issues with turbo coking, and that's why the turbo deposit test is on there. Now, with chain wear, that's a really important one because obviously we have concerns around chain wear, but the reason we want to put that in is because as the allowable levels of phosphorus and sulfur have been driven lower by regulations around emissions, as well as the way that they poison catalysts, then the obvious answer would just be to pull ZDDP out of the package. But if you do that and it then causes wear, then that's obviously a problem. So we need to check that we're still affording a degree of anti-wear protection, and that's why the chain wear test has been included. All right. We can kind of think of the ACEA regulations as sitting on a bit of a spectrum. So if you look at fuel efficiency on one axis and SAPs on another axis, we can basically divide it into C1 versus C4, C2, C5 versus C3, and then A5, B5 versus the A3, B4. Now, the other thing that should be noted is that most of these regulations are kind of additive. So let's say, for example, A3, B4, you'll see that the language around it is extended oil drain intervals. When we move to an A5, B5, the keys are extended oil drain intervals, low viscosity engine oils, and unsuitable for use in certain engines, right? And then when we go to A7B7, it's similar language, but again, we've added to it. So now it's extended oil drains, low viscosity. And then we've got some additional considerations around low speed preignition and wear protection, plus turbocharger deposits and unsuitable for use in certain engines. So, generally when we talk about the ACEA oil categories, they sort of add requirements on top of each other, and the larger the number, the more stringent the requirements are.